everybody in this room is obviously human, which means that each and every one of us have experienced a variety of emotions. This includes sadness, anger, and even fear. Now I'd like you to raise your hand that if when you were experiencing one of these three emotions, you were asked this question. Now I'd like you to keep your hand up if you actually answered honestly. Okay, the very fact that most of you just put your hands down means that most of the people in this room have been guilty of suppressing their emotions at one point or another. Now, I have been surrounded by people who suppress their emotions my entire life. I've never witnessed the men in my family with so much as watery eyes. And the women cry in this very, very unique way. I'm not sure if it even counts as crying. They shed only one tear out of the corner of their eye, and that's it. They're done. It's like it had to fight its way out. However, I've cried on several occasions, like literally sobbed. And I've spent my entire life being told I'm weak because of it. Now, as you can imagine, I eventually grew tired of being told I'm too weak or too emotional. So I began to suppress my emotions at the very worst time. It was around November of last year, and I was working through some family struggles, and I spoke to absolutely nobody. And if by some miracle I did speak to somebody, I was very careful not to express any emotion while doing it. Now, keeping all this inside, it sucked. It felt terrible. It felt absolutely awful. But I did it because I'd been taught that that was strength. And I began to wonder. I didn't feel strong. So is it really strong to keep your emotions inside, and should we be doing it? Now, as I mentioned earlier, my family participates in this emotion suppressing. So I decided to interview them both about why it is they suppress their emotions. I began by asking them why they suppress their emotions, and they both responded the same way. They said they're afraid of being seen as weak, which just so happens to be the #1 reason for suppressed emotions according to a study conducted by Psychology Today. I went on to ask them if they felt it has been beneficial in any way. My mother responded by saying that no, there are no benefits. And my father responded by saying it believes he prevents him from feeling pain so deeply. But the next question I went on to ask received some more interesting answers. I asked them if they felt suppressing their emotions had any negative effects. And my mother responded by saying it makes her feel guilty or ashamed whenever she cries. And my father responded by saying it has negatively affected his relationship with my mother. He claims that she becomes frustrated whenever he doesn't express himself. Sue Johnson wrote an interesting article about how suppressing your emotions might affect your relationship. Surprise, surprise, suppressed emotions destroy a relationship. She wrote that as much as one can say, I'm fine, I'm okay, the other knows that something is wrong. And when you suppress your emotions, you create a feeling of distrust and neglect. Now, I'm sure what I've got most of you thinking. You're all thinking, well, I'm not in a relationship anyway. Or this must only apply to adult relationships. This can apply to any sort of relationship, whether it be a friendship or an emotional connection you might share with a family member. So I encourage you all to just talk about it. Now, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but suppressed emotions have the power to affect not only our mental health, but our physical health. A study conducted by the Journal of Society and Personal Psychology found that our emotions are directly tied to our autonomic nervous system. This is what the autonomic nervous system controls: eyes, heart, lungs, intestines, and muscles. Not much is left over. A separate study conducted by the Journal of Abnormal Psychology found that our emotions are directly tied between the length of one's life and the amount of one's happiness. So I'm no scientist, but I do know this. The longer negative emotions are kept inside, the longer they linger and the more they hurt, causing you to be less happy, live a shorter